Okay, so again, thank you so much, everybody, for hopping on and joining me today. I'm really excited to share all of this with you. This has been, something I've been studying for a while now, and I'm really passionate about it, and I can't wait, for all of you guys to be introduced to it and help yourselves with it too. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started. So just a few just house rules. I just want to make sure you guys, it says 90 minutes on here. That includes time for Q&A. It should be, close to an hour, maybe hour and a half tops. If you need to hop off early, that's fine. I'll have the recording to send to you. Just make sure you keep yourself muted. If you have a question, you could raise the hand, like hit the yellow button that says raise your hand. But I will have Q&A at the end also for you to ask questions. It says keep your camera on during workshop. I understand some of you guys are working. So if that's not possible, then, that's not the end of the world. But, just kind of makes everything a little more personable to see everybody's face. Okay, so what I'm going to cover in the workshop is why the nervous system is so important for this as any women in business or leaders, but really for anybody, period. It's very, very important. And then to understand the different 3 core nervous system states and 3 mixed states that you can enter in, and also how to regulate your nervous system easily so you can withhold boundaries and your business can coexist with your life peacefully. And at the end, as a thank you for everybody who hopped on here, I will also be revealing a gift that will help you get there easier and faster than ever before. Okay, so are we ready? I'm ready. Okay, so I'm going to start by just telling you a little bit about who I am and how I ended up in this spot. If you guys are just hopping on, just make sure you're muted so that way we can limit distractions. Okay, so my story, I have definitely, I know a lot of the women that I reached out to said they had problems with upholding boundaries, overwhelm, stress, anxiety, and these things taking over your life and just controlling it. And I have definitely been there in your shoes. I was stuck for many, many years in a cycle of struggling to set those boundaries. I was very, very highly anxious and stressed and overwhelmed and just, all the things, just very overwhelmed. And sometimes this cycle, it would show up as physical symptoms. Sometimes it would be mental. But the one thing for sure is I let it control too much of my life and I missed out on a lot of opportunities. I know a lot of you here are here with like Color Street, and I missed out on a lot of like the trips that I earned or leadership retreats, like all of that. I just didn't go because I was just too overwhelmed, stressed, and anxious. It also allowed me to accept behaviors and things that I should have never accepted. Like I just did not set those boundaries. I did not hold them. And as I continued to do that, obviously things got worse because that overload just got worse. And it turned me into a version of myself that I honestly didn't even recognize. And I spent year after year visiting medical professionals. I went both the regular and holistic route. I spent countless hours researching, self-diagnosing, and I was just digging for the answers, but my cycle just kept spinning. Sometimes I would get a small victory, have one symptom, ease up or get better, but something new would pop up. Of course, this was like super frustrating. And about 7 years ago, I was talking with a friend and I'd mentioned some of the stuff that was going on. And she, she's kind of into more of like the woo-woo type stuff. I know some of you could probably relate to that. And she told me flat out that I could keep chasing the solution for my symptoms, but there was always going to be a new one that popped up until I got to the true root cause. And it was at that point that I was introduced to the world of the subconscious and the mind-body connection. And that just ended up being a super deep dive for me. And I spent the past 7 years like really digging in and learning that. And this led me to a path where I discovered that my body was overreacting to my external world because my internal world and my nervous system was just so dysregulated. And that is all connected to your subconscious. And the best analogy that I could give to that is imagine your house is on fire and you're standing out there spraying it with a garden hose. Like my symptoms were flaring, my body was in a huge dysregulated state, and I kind of had the garden hose spraying it. So yeah, I might make a little bit of a dent in the problem, but it is not going to be the solution that my body needs. Okay, and so once you get to the point where you can regulate that nervous system. It allows you to confidently set boundaries. It allows you to eliminate that anxiety, stress, and overwhelm. It allows you to take your power back and finally stand firm in control, knowing that it doesn't have to be that way. This is obviously especially important for women in business, and this is the only way your business will ever coexist with your life peacefully. And taking my power back, I say it was taking so long was one of my biggest life regrets. Regrets might be the wrong word. It's definitely wish it would have happened sooner, but I also understand that those struggles is what helped shape me into the person I am today. And when I was going through all of that, I just remember all I wanted was for somebody to hold my hand and show me how the heck do I get to the other side? Like, what the heck do I do? And I've now learned that it was necessary for me to go through that so I can help people, so I can be the one that is helping them through that. And I can confidently say, after not only healing myself, but now dedicating my professional life to helping others achieve this, that it's phenomenal. And it brings so much peace to your life. And as women, especially, I feel like having a life that's filled with peace is how we can truly seize every life moment. It's how we put the joy back into those situations. And it's how we fully show up for things that matter the most to us. And so maybe that's business, that's family, but that's how you can fully show up. And this is where my mission was born. And it's to help women to regulate their nervous system so their business can coexist with their life peacefully. And I want to do this because I believe every woman deserves to live boldly and courageously. And this is how we're going to pave the path for future generations. And this is how we create a more peaceful world, is by doing it ourselves, starting with ourselves first. Okay, so I'm going to get into a little bit about the nervous system and why it's important, what dysregulation means. I'm going to talk kind of quickly because I have a lot of slides and I don't want things to go over. You could drop questions in the chat. Georgia is also very, her and I went through the same training, so she's also very knowledgeable on this topic. So either she can't answer it, I can answer it at the end. But yeah, so just warning, I will move through these pretty quickly. Okay, so why is the nervous system so important? So the nervous system is a vital component to our overall health and well-being. It governs all of our bodily functions, and it takes those external responses from voluntary movements to involuntary movements, from also like heart rate and digestion. It acts as the body's communication network, and it relays information between the brain to the rest of the body. And I'm going to get into this more later, but long story short, if it is not functioning properly, obviously the rest of your body will follow suit because it controls everything. And dysregulation of your nervous system, it happens when two branches of the nervous system, they're out of balance. And your body's stress response is just constantly activated. And even in the absence of a stressful situation, it's just always up here, just activated. And this leads to burnout, which is basically a condition where the body is unable to cope with that stress and becomes exhausted both mentally and physically. And when that stress becomes prolonged, it builds up in the nervous system. And so I have this little chart here where you could see, like, this should be your set point of where your body's in homeostasis. But as that stress continues, you still have your down moments, but it slowly moves up. And then you get to a point where this is now your new altered state or set point, and that allostatic load is just pushing that higher. So now you're constantly running at like a higher state. And when I say these stresses, it could even be things that it's not obvious to you. Like some things are obvious that this is a stressor, but this could be stressors that are not obvious to you. And a lot of things can just push that allostatic load up. So when this happens, it makes your nervous system less flexible, and it will take a toll on the performance if it's not managed properly. This can lead to health issues, chronic stress, anxiety, physical ailments, and it affects how we respond to stressors and interact with our environment. It can show up as mental symptoms, cognitive symptoms, physical symptoms. It is just kind of all over the place. And you could see this is your window of tolerance, and then this is like your hormonal activity. So as you have those stressors, your hormones are also all over the place, and it can push you into these hyper-aroused or hypo-aroused states. Okay, so some of the symptoms of your nervous system being dysregulated, you could feel edgy, irritable, unable to relax, you're hypervigilant, just noticing everything around you. You have anxiety, depression, chronic stress, you're chronically tired or fatigued, insomnia, digestive issues. This is a huge one. Your vagus nerve, which is part of your nervous system, it controls all of these things and your digestive system. And so you can have heartburn, gut issues, bloating, indigestion, diarrhea, emotional volatility, unresolved aches and pains, immune system issues, frequent infections, brain fog, trouble concentrating, just all sorts of all over the place. And this is not a complete list. This is just an example of some of the things that you can experience. So when you start to become out of balance, you're most likely going to be quick to react to things. So when something happens to you, it's hard for you to take the time to really digest that, and you just have a quick reaction to it. It can also cause you to rely on things like alcohol or substances or emotional-based eating, self-isolation, excessive screen time, or procrastination because your body just gets overwhelmed and you're trying to numb it out with those substances. This is when we enter kind of a freeze mode and we are just desperately trying to ignore all of these feelings and stress, and our mind and body is overwhelmed. And it's so much easier to get sucked into a distraction versus addressing the root of that problem. So we kind of freeze up and distract ourselves. It can also, for some people, it will cause you to do the opposite where you overwork. You throw yourself into your work, you become a workaholic, you make everything a bigger deal than it actually is. Everything's just a catastrophe. You know, you're what ifing everything, you're trying to future forecast, so you could go either way. And again, this can cause chronic pain, muscle tension, insomnia, weakened immune system. And this happens when we're in a heightened state and we're basically trying to outrun our problems. And this can also lead to anxiety, stress, overwhelm, because again, your body is just constantly stressed. And when you're constantly stressed, you're just constantly overreacting to the world outside of you. And it's at this point where your body will usually start having some sort of physical symptom show up. And that could even be like a weight gain or, something that's not obvious that you would assume. Like my body especially loves to gain weight when it is really stressed out. That happened to me. Like I regulated myself. And then most of you who are here probably know, like my son had a major accident, was in the hospital for a couple of weeks. And within like a month, I gained 20 pounds and was just, because my body was just so overwhelmed. So you start chasing the symptoms. So let's use the example of like that weight gain for me. I could start doing diet, exercise, whatever, but that's not necessarily going to work. And if it does, it's usually not going to stick because that's not the root of what's happening. So again, this is like your house is on fire, squirting it with a garden hose. It's not the right solution. My body at that point, like with my son's accident, my body was just on fire with everything that was going on. So it doesn't matter how much diet and exercise I was going to do. That is the garden hose. I needed to get to the fire truck and get to the root cause of the issues. This dysregulation, it doesn't happen overnight. This is built up over time, kind of like that graph that I showed previously. It builds up that stress load over time. And then also, this ties into where the subconscious comes in. The subconscious also helps build up over time. And the subconscious, it stores everything, even if you don't remember it. I will actually reference, I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Inside Out or Inside Out 2, the series, but that movie is our work, honestly, to the core. And so if you have seen it, they have all those little balls that are stored in there. And that's how this works. Your subconscious has everything that has ever happened to you or anything that you've inherited generational trauma-wise, it's stored in there. So when you don't take the time to release it, it just keeps getting stuck in there. And then they act as hidden programs running in the background. And this becomes your inner voice. So this again is like the Inside Out 2, if you guys saw that one, where anxiety was trying to make things better. She was trying to control the situation. She got rid of the joy, and it ended up making a whole entire new core personality for Riley because that anxiety just kept putting all of those negative emotions, limiting beliefs, things in there, and it literally changed her entire personality. So you could go from having a strong, brave personality to more fearful, anxious, or withdrawn personality. So this is another example of like the story where I talked about. I have always been a like brave, strong personality my entire life. When I was younger, I like did a camp where I rappelled upside down outside of a helicopter, like cliff jumping. Like I always just did really crazy things. And as soon as I reached that point of overload and dysregulation, I literally couldn't do anything. I couldn't leave my house. Like I was so just withdrawn. So that's an example of how that happens. Is just so much is built up that it just, ruins who you are at a core. Not ruins permanently, but that might have been the wrong word. So then you start to have thoughts like, I can't do it, when previously you didn't have those thoughts. And over time, this voice just gets louder and louder until it overpowers your true self. Honestly, when that voice gets the loudest, that usually means you're ready to address it and you're ready for a breakthrough, because your body's like, ready or not, here it come. If you're not going to address this, I'm going to make you address this. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how the nerves in your body works. So basically your subconscious, it does not like change. And this is partially because of these nerves in your body, but also your subconscious and your conscious brain. And we'll go into the subconscious and conscious a little more later. But when you try to change things, your body will start freaking out because it doesn't know why you want to move past the known. It knows that we have survived this problem, so we could survive it again. That new thing over there, we've never survived that. That is scary AF. I don't want to do that. And so in return, it causes a lot of resistance, and that resistance can hit very, very hard. So 20% of your nerves go down from your brain to your body. The other 80% go from the body up to your brain. So basically, you cannot outthink your nervous system. And this is why sometimes things like those positive affirmations, all that stuff, you cannot outthink it, because you have a 20 to 80. It's like if you do tug of war, if you have 4 people on one side versus 1 on the other, like sure, that one person could win, but it's highly unlikely. And that resistance and inner voice, it gets so loud that it steers you towards, we'll call it the away wall, which is basically the opposite of where you want to be. You want to be focused. This is where you want to be. Well, that voice will turn you over here, which is the opposite. And when that voice gets the loudest, that is when you want to do the work, and it is when it allows you to stay focused on the towards wall. And this is when the breakthroughs happen. So when your body starts screaming at you for help, there's 2 options. You could take the harder route and try to do that 4 against 1 and play that tug of war, or you could work with somebody like me and we could skip a lot of that hard stuff and break through easier and faster. So I want to do a quick activity with everybody right now. So I want you to take a minute. If you have like a pen or paper, that would be ideal. If you want to grab one, that's great too. But I want you to just choose a problem or challenge that you're immediately facing in your life. And I want you to just take a second and write down how that shows up both in your business and also in your personal life. And we will touch base on this again later. So I'll just give everybody, I'll set a timer for like a minute and just kind of write down something that you're facing at this point in time. And I'm going to peek at the chat while you're doing that. Yeah, so we got lots of people saying they freeze, they fall apart. So stress, don't even work your business. Yeah, even that Inside Out, it's such a good movie. Chaos. Yeah, and the other thing is you could put your problem in the chat too. If you don't have a pen and paper, feel free, put it in the chat so we can all kind of touch on it with you. So, and yes, Eva done is definitely better than perfect. I have to remind myself that frequently also. Okay, we got about 20 more seconds here, and then I will move on. If you're not done, you could keep writing. I will just keep talking, so that way we could just keep moving on. Okay. All right, so this is just kind of a little chart of how do you get to where you want to be. So you have your current nervous system state, your future nervous state, and then the gap that's holding you between those two, actionable steps you could take, and then a commitment you can make to yourself. So we are going to address that now. So step 1 is your current nervous system state. So these are the core nervous system states. And there's 3 core ones and there's 3 mixed states. The three primary nervous states are the ventral vagal, which is the rest and digest, and this is activated when your body feels safe and relaxed. And then you have the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight. This is activated when the body is under stress or danger. And then you have the dorsal vagal, which is your freeze. And this is also activated when stress or danger is perceived. We're going to go more into these. This is just a quick touch on that. Sorry if this image is a little blurry. I don't know why the colors just kept popping up kind of blurry on my screen. Okay, so then we have the in-between nervous system states, which the play state, which that is a mix of the sympathetic and the social engagement system, which the social engagement system is also within the ventral vagal. And think of social engagement system as like when you're socializing, like the social cues that you would be using, like eye contact, body language, that type of stuff. The stillness state over here in green, which that is the dorsal vagal and the social engagement system combined also. Sorry to touch base on the play. That would be immobilized without moving into defense. So that would be like you could take action without jumping into defensive. I forgot to mention that, sorry. So then the stillness, which is the dorsal vagal and social engagement, that means you're going to immobilize without defense and association. So you're going to be able to pull back, but you're not going to dissociate and freeze. And then we have the overwhelm, which is you're bouncing back and forth between dorsal vagal and sympathetic nervous system. And the top three emotions that most leaders and women in business tell me that they feel are anxiety, stress, and overwhelm. So I'm going to go ahead and cover which states you're normally in when you feel those emotions and how that might feel in your body. So first, we're going to touch on the sympathetic nervous system. This one is the fight or flight, and it is activated when it feels like you have a perceived threat or stressor. This will cause high levels of cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine. So this is the go, 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 go. You know, when you're experiencing this, you're going to be feeling on edge. You're going to feel defensive. You're going to be quick to react. You're going to pick up on everything as a perceived threat because your body thinks it's in danger. Your body is in a heightened state of stress. It thinks it's in danger. Everything is going to feel like a threat, even if it's not. So your body is very much overreacting to everything in the outside world. At this point, you're most likely going to be feeling elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure. You're going to be super amped, hyper aroused, restless, tense muscles, anxious, irritated, angry, jittery. And another huge sign that your body is in the state is when you start experiencing digestive issues. That is because in the state, the blood flow is increased to your limbs, so you could run or fight. And it's decreased to that digestive system and any of those other internal organs. And so your body is not interested in digesting that last meal because right now we got to run from this lion that is chasing us. So digestive system all over the place. You're in survival mode. People are going to say you come off as angry. You, again, going to jittery, anxious, restless. You are not going to be peaceful in this state. You are not going to be peaceful in your personal life. You're not going to be peaceful in your professional life. This is not an ideal state to be in. Again, you're not coexisting with your business peacefully. Okay, then we have the dorsal vagal. This is the freeze state. So this is just where you reach a point of stress to where you are so burned out, so drained, so numb, you just eventually shut down. This is when you start to feel the doom, and a lot of you will enter into that doom scroll, where you get on your phone and you're like, oh, I'm just going to scroll for a few minutes. And the next thing you know, it's an hour later and TikTok's giving you that notification of, hey, do you still really want to be scrolling right now? Or Netflix will be like, are you still watching? Yes, because I'm doom scrolling, because I'm trying to freeze and avoid my problems right now. You want to pretend the life doesn't exist around you. Body super overwhelmed, and that perceived danger is very strong at this point. At this point, it's kind of opposite of the other one. So you will feel decreased heart rate, decreased blood pressure. Your muscles will still be tight. Your digestive system will definitely still be shut down, but you'll feel numb, frozen, drained, disassociated. And there's an evolutionary reason for this. Let's go back to that example of the lion chasing you. But this time, that lion, he's fast and I can't outrun him. So basically your body enters this state so you can disassociate from the pain that you're about to feel. And so that's great if you are actually about to get eaten by a lion, but obviously not an effective state to be in mentally or physically. Okay, overwhelm. Okay. So overwhelm, this is when you're sympathetic and the dorsal. So those two systems that we just covered, They're both activated at once. You are bouncing back and forth like a ping pong ball. And as you can imagine, this is the most unpleasant state for people to fall into. You are feeling hyper aroused, shut down all at the same time. And you're going to feel hopeless, panicked, stressed. You're going to have those racing thoughts. You're going to have intense panic and intense stress. All the same body symptoms. It's going to be a combination of the two, depending on sympathetic dorsal, depending where you're at. So you might have the high heart rate, you might have like the lower. It just depends on where you're bouncing at that time. Obviously, this is not a great place to be in when you're building a business, and your business is not coexisting with your life peacefully here. Okay, so another activity, I want you to drop in the chat and identify which state you're most likely to drop into when you're faced with a challenge. There's no right or wrong answer here, but just let us know when you have a stressor, do you feel like you enter that fight or flight? Do you enter that freeze, or are you more to bounce in between the two? Okay, so Deanna, she freezes. Yeah, Deanna, I hear you. Freeze. Got more freezers, freeze. Okay. All right. So I'll go ahead and turn off that chat. Okay, so now we're going to move into step 2, your future nervous system states where you want to be. Okay, so now we've covered those disempowered states that nobody wants to be in. They are not enjoyable. We are going to move on to more empowered, enjoyable states. And these are the ones that can help you thrive. They can help you escape those feelings of anxiety, stress, and overwhelm. And none of these states are necessarily better than the other. It's just kind of dependent on what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. And you're also not just limited to one. Like you can move between these states. And that's something that I'll show you how to do, how you can move your body into those states. And you can move from state to state and still maintain that healthy nervous system. So you're coexisting peacefully. And I will tell you right now, you cannot, again, remember the 20/80, with the nerves and the 4-on-1 tug of war, you're not going to be able to think yourself into one of these states. This is going to have to be approached differently, but we'll go into that later. Okay, so the first one is the parasympathetic or the ventral vagal. And this one is the rest and digest state. So this is activated when you feel safe, you feel relaxed. You can be described your feelings as warm, loving, compassionate. I mean, it's that kind of warm fuzzies. You're cool, calm, and collected. You're feeling safe. You will have decreased blood pressure, steady blood flow, steady heart rate. And in this state, your digestive system will actually be functioning properly. And this one also really supports those social engagement behaviors that we touched on earlier. Extra bonus, your immune system is enabled by this nervous system branch. So when you're in this state, your immune system will be working at its highest potential. You'll be feeling your healthiest. And again, so if you're working as a networking, or I'm sorry, if you're networking as an entrepreneur or leader, this is a great state to be in. You'll be able to show up confidently. You'll be setting those boundaries. You won't be able to crumble the first moment a boundaries challenged. I mean, you'll be feeling good. Okay, now we have the play state. So the play state is a combination of this ventral vagal and sympathetic, which, yes, the sympathetic at first glance, if you were just in this one, does not look that great. But when you're a combination of these two, it is actually a very, very beneficial state to be in, especially in your business. And that is because this is where our performance is at our best. These two systems are in balance. You are able to mobilize without moving into defense. So you can make decisions, you can, take action, but you're not going to go into that fight or flight. You're going to be able to stay in a neutral, balanced state. You're alert and focused, you are relaxed and in control. This is where we have our highest level of creativity, and this is where we have our problem solving is done more effectively, and we can build strong social bonds with people. Being in this state, so it helps to build resistance to that sympathetic stress response. So that means we are only activated to respond to actual threats. So remember that chart that I showed you earlier where it starts to build up that load. This helps to bring it back into balance and build that resistance of your vagal brake, it's called, where you can say, no, this is not a threat. We're not going to overreact. And you'll respond when you need to, not at things you don't need to be. You'll be described as upbeat, energized, happy, bubbly. You won't be feeling overwhelmed or stressed. And I mean, just think for a minute how being in this state could affect your business. When you're not thinking, what ifing everything, like what's going to happen, future forecasting, not overthinking, you're not predicting the future, you're confident, you can hold those boundaries. I mean, you're just feeling great. You're tapping into that playfulness, you're having fun. You're not thinking about something that's due next week. You're literally just living peacefully and confidently with your life. Okay, now we have stillness. The stillness right here, this green, is a combination of the dorsal vagal and the ventral vagal systems. And in this state, basically, you can immobilize without recruiting defense. So that means you can pull back, but you're not going to freeze and shut down. This state also builds that dorsal vagal response because it strengthens the connection between that mind and body, and it ensures that you only enter that shutdown state when it's extremely necessary, like extreme circumstances when it's necessary. Again, you'll feel at peace, calm, quiet, serene in this state. You're able to cope with stress easier. You're not quick to respond in an unreasonable manner. You're not overreacting. You're able to control your emotions. You have increased creativity and productivity, and it's just a great state of overall well-being. And it's not going to come as a surprise, I'm sure, to hear anxiety, stress, and overwhelm is very low in this state, and your business can coexist with your life peacefully here. All right, so in summary, which state is best for you and your business? Honestly, it is dependent on you, and it is dependent on the task you are trying to accomplish. It depends on your standard energy level. Are you usually functioning at a lower energy? I don't mean that in a bad way, like you're always exhausted, but I just mean, are you kind of more of like a cool, calm, chill, quiet person? Or are you kind of more of that high energy, bubbly type personality? Are you tired of being overwhelmed and anxious? The first step is awareness. So what we just walked through demonstrates how our nervous system plays that huge part and how we achieve the results that we desire. I know in that summary, it was pretty vague because it really is very dependent. So I'm going to touch on more of that in a minute here. Okay, so for this activity, I want you to do visualization and think back to your problem and how when that stressor comes up, you're most likely, it seemed like a lot of people went into freeze state. I want you to now say, which one would you prefer to be? Even the house gets clean. That cracks me up because I do the rage cleaning too. That's funny. I'm just going back through on some of these problems that I missed. But yeah, tell me which state you would rather be in instead of these overwhelmed ping pongs, freezing. Which state do you feel like you would thrive in the best? I'll just give it a minute to see what we get in the chat here. Erica, right? There's no right answer. It's just if any of them feel like Eva forgot. So you have the stillness, you have the play, and then you have I'll go back this way so you could see it. We'll go back through so I could pull up the chart. So where's the chart? Okay, so you have play, stillness, and then the overwhelm, which are the combination, or you can do like the ventral vagal, which is also another one of the positive states. Okay, so now that you've thought about where you'd rather be, let's see, we got two more in here. Just wants to find balance and stillness. Yep, Eva, same girl, same. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the gap. So how do you get from where you are to where you want to be? So I'm going to touch a little bit on the unconscious or subconscious mind. The unconscious mind is 90% of your brain, and only 10% is conscious. And so that 10% is the only things that you're really aware of, and that other 90%, you are not really aware of what's going on. It's doing things like controlling the bodily functions, and we'll touch more into that. But basically, it's not until you make that unconscious conscious that your life will be for the better. Okay, so again, we're touching on the inside out and the 10% and the 90%. So if you think about, I don't know, this isn't the inside out is a weird place to put that quote. It'll be touched on in a minute here. But the subconscious here, it stores everything that has ever been said to us, done to us, anything we've experienced. It also can store things that were passed down from generations of our parents. It is all stored there in that subconscious, and it holds on to it, and So it's like the iceberg, where the 90% is under and you only see the 10%, but the 90% is what's underneath what you can't see. So this is where you store memories. This is the domain for emotions. This is where, you take everything personally here, and organizes all your memories. It can also repress memories, and it it can present those repressed memories to your conscious mind for resolution and release when it feels like that time is ready. And this is also, when it says preserves the body, this is, bodily functions like heart rate and breathing, that type of stuff. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about those limiting beliefs. These are beliefs that are stored in that subconscious mind. They're implanted there, either you inherited them or it was before the age of 7. You can have a problem not show up till later in life, but at 99.9% of the time, it was installed there before the age of 7. These play a huge part in regulating your nervous system. And when you have these limiting beliefs trapped, it causes a dysregulation, and that builds up until you hit the breaking point. Again, it could show up as like illness, and just exactly kind of like this image. Limiting beliefs are just kind of that ball and chain holding you back. Okay, so now this is where the inside out quote's supposed to be. So this is what we're talking about. All these little balls are like all the memories, traumas, events, anything that's ever happened to you, or think of it like a glass bowl, like you're just constantly putting everything that happened to you. Like this one time somebody rejected you, this one time somebody stole your cookie at school, like who knows? Like, and a kid, that's something that'd be really traumatic when you're a kid and your body just holds on to all of that. And or think about like the Inside Out 2. If you've seen that, there's a scene where anxiety takes over and she tries to control everything, and she's trying to do what's best. She really had good intentions, but to do that, she's future forecasting and trying to predict what happens. And as she does this, she's just adding all of these negative beliefs and emotions into it. And again, the girl's core value, Riley, it completely changes, and she is no longer the same person. She's not acting the same. She's making the different choices. But as you'll see, if you've seen the movie, this anxiety hits a point where it's a breaking point, where it goes into a panic attack, a full-blown cyclone spiral, and it had to have the joy come in to remove that, to bring it back into balance. So think of me in this situation as kind of like joy. I'm going to come in and take some of that out. So then that way you can get back to your balance. These beliefs, emotions, traumas that we have stored, again, they define who we are and how we act. It impacts how we respond to any or react to any situation. It changes your whole outlook on life. But as you start to pick these out, you can begin to feel and be and act like your true self again. And the problem never changes. Like, let's be honest, we're never going to live in a perfect world, but the state that you're in when you're facing the challenge and your perception of the problem is what changes. And you'll notice things become easier when there's no conflict between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind, and they're able to connect fluidly without something interfering, like those limiting beliefs or, negative stuck emotions. Okay, so again, reminder that 20% of your body is the mind down. So if you try to add positive emotions to counteract those negative ones, it's like mowing those dandelions. Okay, it looks great for about a day, but they're going to grow back. And this is exactly the same thing as your mind. Like if you're trying to do those daily affirmations or whatever, like I'm not saying those are bad things. They're absolutely not bad things, but they're a temporary solution when you need to actually dig that dandelion out at the root. And if you try to just mow it off at the top, there'll become a time when your body says, yeah, no, we are dealing with this now, whether you want to or not. And either that will show up as a physical symptom or anxiety or whatever. That voice just keeps getting louder and louder until finally you tune into your body and say, okay, what do we need to address? Okay, so basically, if you just keep adding more and more of the negativity to that jar, it's really just going to add up over time, versus if you start doing the inner work and start removing some of those little balls in that jar that do not need to be there. Again, the problems aren't going to magically go away, but it's going to completely change with how you handle that problem. So it's kind of like having a cheat code to your life, and only you know the code. So it's like, this is a cheat code, is picking those out so you can react in a more reasonable manner. And it's not about not feeling the negative emotions. This is a vital component to life, but it's about how you move through them and not allow them to just get stuck and pull you down with them. Okay, so this is a visual. The MOW stands for Model of the World. And this is, so your old model of the world, and this is a new model of the world. So these are all the little things building up, okay? And so as you're going through this, where the bifurcation point is, that's where you want to break through. And so your body, it keeps adding things to that jar to try to get your attention. And you get to a point to where you start to become uncomfortable because, it keeps adding that pressure to try to break through this point here. And most people's response will be to reach in and grab these balls and pull them out. And this isn't me talking about the negative emotions, those we do want to remove, but this is just the pressure, like they back off. But really what they need to do is address the root cause of the problem and then slowly add a tiny bit more pressure in a safe, calm way. And that will eventually make it break through, and you will no longer have that little line keeping you stuck, and you're able to kind of escape from that point. I know it kind of feels counterintuitive if you're feeling the pressure to add more, but really that is how we allow those things to escape. So again, like I said, when you hit this point, your body will want to pull back. So let's talk about, let's say you finally, like, you're listening to this and you're like, okay, you know what? This sounds really great. Enough is enough. I do want to address this. The minute you make an appointment to try to address it, you will usually have something come up. And this is your subconscious trying to prevent you from doing that new thing. That's so scary. Again, the problem, we know we've survived this. We don't know about this new thing. That's scary. I don't want you to do that. So this is preventing you from pushing through, because again, it just wants to keep you alive. And really the best thing that you need to do is to notice that this could come up and to push through it. Okay, so actionable steps. So here are 5 steps to help, like a process to regulate your nervous system so you can withhold those boundaries and business coexist with your life peacefully. So first step is to recognize and just focus on what you want. We need to kind of get in a space to where we are shifting your awareness. We don't want to be looking at what we don't want, which is the away wall. We want to shift that perception. So we're looking at the toward wall, which is what we want. And this allows us to start clearing anything out, and also just keep us focused on what we want so we don't go back to that negativity and spiral. The second step is to release or clear out the past. This step is when we start reaching in, like, that picture of the inside out, and we start removing all of those little negative emotions, those limiting beliefs, those disempowering decisions. Also, this will be where we address any parts that could be conflicting with each other. By parts, I mean, like, part of me thinks I can do it, part of me thinks I can't do it. We address those. That could be playing a role in your nervous system regulation. Oh, I said that right there. And then, so we can release those and move on to the next step. Then we have redefine and replace. So now that we have those things removed, we want to redefine how we want to see the situation that we're facing. Again, it's not the situation, it's never going to change. It's how you're going to react to it. So your conscious mind is going to be saying one thing, but your unconscious is going to be saying another. And nothing is going to ever stick until we get them to communicate effectively and remove those blocks between the two. So I have an example of this of one of the clients that I worked with. I have permission to share this. When I was doing work with her, she had a limiting belief that was stuck down in her core, that everything for her had to be hard. And actually the exact verbiage of it was her birthright to suffer. And we went through and we removed that. We replaced it with something else along the lines of her life flows with ease. And since then, I kid you not, her life is flowing with ease, because that is now what we have reinstalled. She no longer makes things harder because that limiting belief is no longer there. And you'll start to notice, because you're no longer attracting the things that you don't want, you're attracting the things that you do want. And you attract, like, who you are. Okay, so then at this point, this is where you take action. you'll find once we remove those limiting beliefs that it is a lot easier to take action. Those things that have been keeping you stuck will be achieved almost effortlessly. And your nervous system's at ease, so things just start flowing to you. This is where you feel freedom, and this is where you get that confidence, where you get what you want. And so another example of this in a, kind of a life example would be, let's say, again, let's talk about like the weight loss part of it, is you could go to a personal trainer and that personal trainer can say, eat well and exercise, but you have a limiting belief or some sort of emotion in there that causes you to, let's say, like emotional eat. As long as that barrier is there, you can take the action, but you're most likely not going to succeed. It's when we remove that belief that you can take the action and it will actually stick and you'll be able to get to where you want to be. Okay, and then rinse and repeat. So, I mean, we are forever growing and evolving. So this is going to be something you will eventually have to rinse and repeat. Kind of like how I talked about with mine, how I went through all this regulation. I got in a fantastic state. I gained that confidence. I set boundaries. I stopped putting up with things that I should not have been putting up with. And honestly, I lost 75 pounds like without trying. This isn't me saying I guarantee you're going to lose weight if you do this, but just saying that was one of the things that was for me. And then I had just too much stuff of life thrown on me at once with my son and his accident. And I allowed myself to step back into a dysregulated state, and those symptoms and things started coming back up. And so that was when I had to stop, recalibrate, and start over. So that's what I mean by rinse and repeat, is this is kind of a process of where you don't do it once and it goes away forever. Like you're going to have to kind of calibrate every now and then. So, okay, so again, without doing the inner work to remove these things, it just gets harder over time, not easier. You will see that your business, but as you implement them, your business will begin to coexist with your life peacefully. You can hold those boundaries. You will not have the anxiety, stress, and overwhelm. It's kind of like, the Staples easy button. Like, I don't know if any of you remember that commercial. You kind of hit the easy button and it gets you there faster. This takes emotional awareness. It takes courage. But when you do it, you'll notice that you're acting differently and that you are different. And again, you have those boundaries. You're able to say no. You're spending quality time with your family, and overall, your life and business, it just gets better. Okay, I'm going to touch a little bit on setting boundaries because that was one of the things that a lot of people said they had issues with. So this is the number one challenge that I heard from leaders that I chatted with on when their nervous system dysregulated, that they have a very big problem setting boundaries. So you've seen the super high level framework of why it's almost impossible to set clear boundaries until you've cleared out that internal stuff. So first of all, you need to confidently and clearly state that boundary. So 1 to 2 sentence max, this is my boundary, and you expect them to uphold it. So you don't want to add, just to touch back on this, you don't want to talk too much. Again, 1 to 2 sentences, because over talking makes a person think that it could be up for debate or that it's a non-negotiable. You want to make sure they know it's non-negotiable. And now that you've set the boundary, you want to expect that boundary to be tested, because that's just how life works. Normally you're tested 1 to 3 times. And this is where you need to have the courage and confidence to reinforce that boundary. And the number one reason you're not reinforcing that boundary is when your nervous system is hijacked and you're in disempowered state, or you have those negative emotions and limiting beliefs, which again are adding to the nervous system hijack. And again, that's why it's so important for us to do that inner work. If your boundaries are still being tested after 3 attempts, assume you didn't state the boundary correctly or clearly, or you aren't following through with the consequences that you set. For example, there's no reason for somebody to respect the boundary. Like, they need to have that reason clearly stated. And if you don't set and hold those boundaries in business, you're going to do so the same in your personal life. And if you don't set and hold boundaries as a leader, you're not going to do it at home. And same, if you don't do it at home, you're not going to be able to do it at work. So this isn't an either or game. This is deep inner work that has to be done, so we can confidently do that. So I do have a 1-page guide that helps clear this up a little bit on how to set those boundaries and hold them. So if you're interested in that guide, just go ahead and drop the word guide in the chat and we will get that to you. Okay, so at this point, this is the step 5 of the chart, is to make the commitment to yourself. So it's so important for you to keep the promises that you make to yourself. And this is why I recommend that you make a commitment to yourself to finally take control of your nervous system, so you can finally live that life of peace. So I want you guys to all just kind of get out a piece of paper and a pen and just write a commitment to regulate and reset your nervous system. It could be as simple as, I commit to regulating and resetting my nervous system. You can add more to that, but I want you to physically write it down, because it makes all the difference when you actually put that pen to the paper and you get it written down. Okay, so just a quick little recap. I know I moved through that super fast, but we kind of covered why the nervous system is so important, especially for women in business or leaders, to understand the different states that your nervous system can be in. And we touched briefly on how you can regulate your nervous system to withhold those boundaries so your business can coexist with your life peacefully. And I say briefly touched on that because, as I said, when you want to work on switching those states of the nervous system, it is individualized to the person. So, in a person that says, I didn't want to make this a 6-hour long event, and to keep it, short and sweet, what I'm going to do is, as a gift, I'm going to offer all of you guys an hour-long call. This will be for free, to where you can schedule a call with me, and I will show you how you can regulate that easier and faster. Because there's 2 options. You can take the road by yourself and, do it kind of the hard way, or you could reach up and have somebody help and show you the way. So again, as a thank you for attending, I'm going to gift you this, I call it Regulate and Reset Experience, 60-minute call where I will help you specifically based off of you and the things you're dealing with and your personality, regulate that nervous system. Georgia's going to go ahead and put a link in the chat right now so you can book that call with me. This is not a sales call. I will not be doing any sales or anything on the call. It's literally just a 60-minute gift to help you get to that point of regulation. Okay, and again, just make sure you booked it. And if you are planning on booking it, then go ahead and, give us a shout out in the chat so we can shout you out. And I appreciate all of you guys, taking the time to do that, because it's going to be so beneficial when you do. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for Q&A. First, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. No, I don't want this one. Hold on, why was it? I don't want to share. Okay, I'll just leave it like that because my button, oh, there it is. Can you guys, is it still sharing the screen for you guys, or did it click off? Georgia, is it the normal view now, or is it still
It's still on there.
on the other one? Okay. Sorry, I just got a new computer like 2 days ago and all the buttons are different.
About that. There we go. I got it all for you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I just want to, again, thank everybody for coming. And then I just want to open this up for any questions that you might have. You can, at this point, like raise your hand and unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat. Oh, I see Eva, looks like you signed up for the call. Yay, I'm so excited to meet with you. All right, so any questions? All right, Erica scheduled her free call. Yeah, definitely make sure you guys are getting that scheduled. It's completely free. Again, this is just to help get you to where you are. But yeah, any other questions while I have you here, or statements or anything else?
I think this is going to be super helpful for me in the next journey I am taking.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. When you messaged me that, I was like, yeah, this is going to be monumental.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, this is something, it benefits everybody, really. But yeah, for sure, I can see this being so beneficial to you.
Well, what a what a great time to drop it in my life, though. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, not that it wouldn't have been helpful 5 years ago, but you
Yeah.
know,
Well, there's no coincidences.
no.
All right. Well, does anybody have any other questions while I got you here? Or make sure everybody's got the chance to get that link copied and opened so they can get their scheduled. If you missed it for whatever reason, you can let me know and I'll message it to everybody also. But Eva, you are so welcome. Thanks for being here. Yeah, Natalie going through lots of stress right now. I hear you. I hear you. I'm with you. Make sure you get that call booked so we can help try to get you regulated. And I haven't looked at the calendar to see who has booked. I was just going off of who says on here. So,
Oh, I did.
well, good. Thank you. All right. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and let you get back to your day. But again, thank you so much for hopping on here with me and make sure you book that free call.
Thanks, Cassie.
Thank you, Cassie.
Thank you guys. Well, have a good day.
You too.